Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and good evening wherever you are in the world. We got a lot of updates from our previous shorter time frame or medium time frame analysis from our first video. Now, we did discuss all the potential opportunities and how we can trade the local structure. And one of those potential structures that I mentioned that had very high probability, actually, I was one of the first to mention that there was a possibility of a diagonal with all the evidence and reasoning behind it. And why we were looking for a possibility of the diagonal is because we saw a three-wave move to the downside, and there was a 4-hour bullish divergence being created. So that helped us kind of build that narrative on that. And it looks like, well, it did happen, and we got that diagonal rather shortly, but it still played out very, very nicely. And by the way, if you guys are interested in joining the members only group, I do have a Discord, and I've been operating that since 2018. So if you are interested in joining the membership group where I do upload the micro timeframes and the shorter timeframes on a daily basis, please do feel free to join. And I also do share trade setups in there. And the link is in the description below. So please, if you're interested in joining, do not hesitate to join. Now, going back into the current price action, like I said, our original narrative that we were originally anticipating was this diagonal to play out. And the reason why is because we had a series of threes being played out in the ending diagonal. And again, in the ending diagonal, you can only have a series of 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, which are all corrective structures, right? So when we had this move up, we saw this originally as a possible 1, 2 being created, but we were able to identify some kind of triangle being made. So that was definitely a giveaway that this was still being a three-wave, and that is why we came up with that conclusion that this was going to be a diagonal variation being created of some sort. But we also had the idea that it can further possibly go down, but due to that reasoning of the 4-hour bullish divergence, there was still quite a bit of demand within these regions here. So that is something to keep in mind. In terms of making sure what probabilities and expectations you can see in terms of the outcome. So again, this larger flat structure, whether it's deemed finished or not, in my opinion, it must be finished. It's very getting highly extended, and any further down, I think we will see a big hit and a loss against investor confidence. So I definitely do not want to see this trading below the 618 or even the 786. Although that is a level of high confident reversal. So what is the aftermath? In the aftermath of this diagonal? Well, first of all, this definitely looks impulsive. So everything is being set up quite nicely. Now, since this is the end of something, we have to now figure out what is this going to be developing into and how this is going to be a continuation to the upside. Well, since we have a wave 3 and a 4 now deemed assumed completed, we have to now assume that this is going to be a creation of a wave 1. Now, this is looking impulsive. When you have a strong breakout like this with no real shallow pullbacks, that is definitely a sign of strength. But again, we have to be very wary about what scenarios do loom against us in terms of the bearish scenarios, in terms of risk management. But for now, since we are breaking out of here, this is the first first sign that we're looking for the beginning of what is going to be a wave 1 and a wave 2 in the making. So if we're looking for a wave 2 pullback, we want to be looking for Fibonacci's. Now, this is the assumption at the current time of this recording that this is the top. We could still create some kind of different variation, whether this is going to be a 1, 2, or maybe a 1, 2 of a shallow flat, and we just go up. All on the table, but there's a lot of variations on what we can do. We're just looking for the corrective outcome in terms of how a wave 2 can play out. So if we're just assuming based on Fibonacci and the combination of those technical factors, we're just going to assume that maybe we are creating a wave 2, maybe retest this trend line, and that is where we meet that 618 Fibonacci level, and that will be the wave 1, 2. That would be a very, very great move to the upside where we create that final move to the upside for wave 3, 4, and 5. Eventually this being the top. Or we can, again, create some kind of variation, maybe even a double zigzag of some sort, right? Where we create another complex structure. That would be even better. because that would negate a lot of the bearish factor. The longer we correct here, that means we create a range. And what is a range? That means there's a sign of strength. So there's a lot of variations, but again, we want to be seeing how these levels hold. That's the most important thing. And if we continue up, the better it is. Even maybe wave 1 is still being created, where maybe this is a wave 3 of wave 1. And then we create a wave 1 here. All on the table. So we're just expecting overall move to the upside eventually. So that is how I currently see this whole move. I do not want to see us trading below the 786, and if that is the case, that would be too late for a short in my opinion. But there are ways we can see this from a bearish perspective. Now let's get on to the bearish scenario. If we look at, so this move here was very tricky, right? Because of all of these overlaps. But I do have a possibility of us being still in a double zigzag scenario where we still can work with a wave W and X instead of an AB. Overall has a strong look to it as well. But what's the problem here? When you're working with a candle chart and you have all these overlaps via wicks, it's difficult to find a real count. You know, we can have said this was some kind of expanding diagonal if it went further down, and that could have been the wave A and then B and then go down for a wave C. So if we're looking for wave Y now, we have to look for a simple zigzag structure, right? An idealized zigzag structure. Why? Because wave W was a simple zigzag, and wave Y has to be a simple zigzag as well. Now, there is a possibility for this to be the same internal structure, which it is. What we're looking here is, due to the complex nature of this, we can reduce a lot of the noise via what is known as the line chart. And that helps us give us a little bit more clarity on where the actual real price action was. So if we look at the line chart where the actual closed price action was, it's giving us a far clearer picture on how the three waves are moving internally for this possible B wave before we go down for a C wave. Okay? So if we do it this way, we can still say that this is a wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, instead of saying that originally where we had this as a wave 1, 2, 3, and then 5. This was a three-wave move. This was a three-wave move. Now what's next? Either as an impulse to the upside to complete wave B, or, so that would be essentially an A, B, C to the upside, most likely as an expanded structure, expanded variation. And in that case, we would be creating a larger B wave of this X wave here, or this Y wave here, following this X wave. So a relatively good looking structure, if you're going to be asking me, if we're going to be bearish. This, 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 and this, and this, and this would eventually create the larger double zigzag scenario. So that is the bearish idea. Now, what is the variation on how we can create this? Again, we have a three-way move. We have a three-way move. Whether this is the beginning of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, absolutely possible we create some kind of expanded variation within a B wave move. Now, we can also alternatively say that wave C is replaced by wave Y, where we can say that the internal structure, since B wave can be in any corrective structure, we can say that this is a running variation as well, if we're going to say that, hey, the market is not ready to go up, which is absolutely possible, that we're going down now. Why? Because this alternatively, again, this remains the same. Now this is looking like a three-wave structure in itself. So that is what creates this leg here, and this leg here, where we're looking for, finally, a five-wave move impulse to the downside. Again, geopolitical issues are going to be probably the biggest catalyst into how we're going to play this. But again, we had that catalyst yesterday, and that didn't play out accordingly for the bears. So that was a little bit unfortunate, and that's just how the market works. And that's why we're here to mitigate risk in terms of that. But the risk now is increased for bulls as well. Even though we have a strong upside momentum, we still need to break above these levels for even more confidence, just like I shared in that first scenario. So this WXY double zigzag scenario, as long as we're using the line chart, we can remove a lot of the noise that is happening. We would, if the rules were allowing an ABC flat for a wave Y, that would be fine. But since we can't do that, we have to use a line chart to help mitigate a lot of the inefficiencies that are happening within the markets. So if that is happening, I would expect this to be the ultimate bearish scenario. That is pretty much the only way I can currently see it, where we see this as a ABC move. And that would be the partner leg to this, where we would eventually hit the 1618, most likely based on this length here, and this length is now being extended even more. If we say that, we can say the 1618 is going to be our eventual target, which is around here, around the 54 to 55, which is another very strong demand zone. So that would be a good time to possibly increase your bags or for Bitcoin. But for now, we have to stick with what we have. And the current idea that we're having is this original narrative of the possibility of continuing up now. And we would finish this leg of the fourth wave, and now we're working for the fifth wave as a 5-wave impulse, okay? Now, there are some other variations. We can correct even longer, which is create even possibly of a 1-2 structure, and that would give us even further confidence of a possible larger corrective structure of a sideways move. Again, I don't like to assume these too far ahead, but we are creating, since we've already created this first leg of an ABC possibility, we can even create a 3-way move to the upside once again. And if that's not impulsive enough, we won't know until we get up into these regions, because if we hit the 101 target, the surpassing of that would be the wave 3. But if we are able to get secured by the bears, that we get secured in the 1236 to the 1382 level for an expanded B pocket possible is that we could be creating a 3-way move as such, and then we come back down for an expanded flat of a larger caliber of this scenario. So that is another possibility. So this could be just the beginning of something as well, ladies and gentlemen. Since it is a 3-wave move, 3-wave moves are transitional into either something start of a new impulsive wave or something more complex. And this is the complex way that we can also see it. Who knows? We might be in another triangle of some sort. It's too early to call, though. We don't want to be calling diagonals or triangles too early. But with diagonals, the reason why we called this diagonal was because we were seeing the momentum indicators. That is something that also Elliott wave theory teaches us, is that if other technical factors of momentum indicators are giving us divergences of some sort, it can be giving us that some buying strength is back in the market, or if a bearish divergence, some weakness is also showing, and that is what we got here. So currently, that is the situation that we should be seeing. Those are the two scenarios that I see. Again, the WXY scenario as well, via the line chart, is a very, very interesting probable scenario. That is the only way I can see the current scenario. Instead of focusing too much on the AB, I think that there is a possibility that there's a WXY in the creation as well. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If you're interested in joining the Discord membership, please, again, do not hesitate to contact me via the link in the description below. I'll see you guys in the next live stream, or next video, rather. Thank you very much.